All right, so again, this is our end of year ESS training. Welcome all of you here as ESS coordinators. I know some of you are sitting in for your district coordinator. I will make the PowerPoint available at the end of the meeting, and I am recording, and I will make the recording available at the end of the meeting. So, don't worry about having to take a whole lot of notes unless it's just something that you want to do for you, and that's fine. We have an hour together. I'm probably not going to have a lot of time to answer specific district questions because, frankly, there's 176 of you, and we just don't have that kind of time. But I'm always here for you. You can email or call me, and if you have something specific to your district, can we spend our money on X? We had to change our programming to this, or whatever. We can deal with that offline, so that's not a problem at all. I'm always available to you. All right, so we're going to jump in. If anybody's having trouble seeing my screen, please let me know. You can type it in the chat box if you'd like. I think I have all your mics muted, but I think you can unmute them. So just let me know. Quick agenda overview. We're going to hit the big stuff, review our purpose, talk quickly about budgets, go over the end of year reports and forms, talk briefly about daytime waivers. We're going to talk about some program considerations that district coordinators are going to want to keep in mind, and then data entry reminders as we talk about the intervention tab entry. Okay. So for those of you that have been around a while, you know this, but you also know I always go over it. ESS regulation 704 KAR 390 requires each school is required to provide an ESS. And under those KARs, the major emphasis is in one of four areas. It's on helping students progress from grade to grade, to make sure they exit elementary ready for middle or exit middle ready for high, or to make sure that as they're exiting high school, they meet high school graduation and post-secondary level or workplace benchmark skills. So there's our big purposes for ESS. Anything that you do program-wise should align to one of these. In terms of budgets, a lot of you know where that budget information is kept, but it's on the web page. If you type in the search box, state award notifications, you can type the whole thing if you want to, but state award notifications will get you there, or straight state grant notifications. I do provide a link in the PowerPoint, which you will get a copy of. So you can always go there and see what your district allocation is. In order to fill out your projection report, you're going to need to know what that is. I don't think the next year's is up yet. I've been told that it's probably going to be mid-May or end of May before those are posted. If you want to do your projection report based on last year's amount until you know differently, that's fine. I don't expect, they haven't said that there will be huge changes yet, but again, we'll pass along from budgets anything that we hear. Keep in mind that ESS is not a 12-month grant. It's always been an 18-month grant. Your funds need to be allocated by September 30th and expended by December 30th. So you have until December 30th to spend down all of this year's school money. And you always spend the oldest money first. So if you start next school year, obviously you will start before September 30th. You can start with the oldest money first and then move into your new grant allotment. That has always been allowed for ESS. That's not anything new. Moving on to reports, what's due when? And many of you are new, and I know there's been a little panic over that. Don't panic. There's no panicking allowed. We're going to be just fine, and we'll get through this together. So all districts will submit the following by June 30th. June 30th is our deadline. However, there are always things that happen. Maybe you had somebody retire or somebody get very, very sick. June 30th is the deadline, but if you're running into an individual problem in your district, let me know and we'll talk through it. The annual program projection report, I'm going to show you that in a second. and your notification that ISEE records for the district are complete and verified. That is actually a survey in SharePoint, but I'm going to show you kind of a Word version of it today because for some reason my SharePoint is wonky this morning, and I was afraid it would quit on me in the middle of the presentation, so I didn't try to pull that up. Let's look at the projection report first. So this is the projection report form. I sent it with the meeting invite. It's on the web page, but if you need something different or you're unable to access it there, just let me know. This is what you fill out as the district coordinator every year. Nothing has changed on the form, including I need to change a date there apparently. So I will fix that. Oh, I pulled up this year's. No problem. That hasn't changed. So you fill in the district name, the ESS allotment from KDE, and again, if you don't know this year's, feel free to use last year's for now for planning purposes. Budget after the district takes flex, whatever you're setting aside for next year's summer term, and if your district mandates attendance to ESS, if you could mark yes, but at this time, I don't think we have anyone doing that. There was one district considering it. I think most of you do not do that. And then you're looking at a projection for students served based on this year or based on your average. I'm going to pull up a sample projection report because I put some numbers in for you. So, you know, do you provide transportation? Yes or no? Projected number of students, grades, classified staff, student tutors, certified staff. This has not changed. And again, we're aware that this is an estimate, so it doesn't have to be precise. And then the bottom portion is all of the schools in your district. And that is all of the schools in your district because all schools are required, as I showed you on that legislative slide, to offer ESS. So, and you know, I'm not always very creative when I make up names. So I have ABC High School, ABC Middle School, ABC Duo Elementary, ABC Elementary, ABC Alternative School. So it's a very, oh, okay. Let me see if I can fix that. Hang on a minute. Apparently they're not seeing the report. They're only seeing the slides. So I'm going to try to fix that real quick. All right, let me know if that helped. Okay, great. I'm sorry. For some reason, I had only told it to show the PowerPoint and not my screen. I apologize. So again, here's the top of that form. Here's the projection on the type of programming the district thinks it will offer. And we all know that if something changes, we can make changes. But we do have to make changes. I have to have this form on file for you. So, and here's where I was talking about each school in the district. And then what type of programming you feel like well, not feel like, but you project that you'll be offering. Mine still only shows the PowerPoint. Okay. Sorry, it's really hard to, oh, okay, there it is. Okay. So for instance, ABC County High School, they're going to do after school, before school, evening school, Saturday school, intersession, and they're going to do a or they're going to do a summer program, sorry. And what we're giving them in their ESS funds is $12,000 plus an extra $1,000 for the summer. And again, understanding that these are estimates. Up here is what we get as a district, $99,000, and then the what the district actually gives me would be $50,000, and they're also going to give me an extra $3,000 for summer. So that lets me know kind of where the money portions are split up for the district. All right, so ABC Middle, they're going to offer all that fun stuff for $10,000. ABC Duo, they're going to do an early jumpstart program right before school starts, after, before, and a daytime waiver. Now, those of you that have been with me for a long time and you know what I'm getting ready to say, one of the things we look for, we being me, is if this daytime waiver box is checked, what else do I need to see? Any guesses in the chat box there? If I see a daytime waiver program, I should also see, yes, Some kind of out of school time program. Thank you guys. There has to be something else checked. The regs still say that in order to have a daytime program, there has to be an out of school time component as well. So that's one of the first things I check for, and that is the primary reason this report gets sent back to you. And I hate to say the word rejected, but with SharePoint, that's what I have to do. I have to reject it so that you can fix that and resubmit it. So make sure that, you know, that portion is done, and we won't be sending that report back and forth. So that's the projection report. And again, let's say that, you know, this is what my district tells me, but then school starts back and they tell me, no, we're going to give you 75,000 instead. We decided, you know, we need more for combating that summer slide with our kiddos. Then you just come in, re-estimate your numbers, and then send it back to me. I replace the new one with the old one, and we go on. Everything's fine. Okay, so that's the projection report. It's due June 30th. The ISEE check, again, that is a survey in SharePoint. You just go in and take the survey directly. But this is my like Word version of that survey, just so you know what the questions are. Basically, and we're going to talk more about the intervention tab and the data in a minute, but this is what the survey asks you. It asks you if each school has entered data, yes or no. Are there any blank fields? Are there any blanks? Basically, that's what this whole thing is. Are there any blanks? And is your data complete? Yes or no? And this is the regular year data. Do you have summer school? Some of you are doing summer school this year. You've already planned to do virtual right as school ends, or you're waiting until July to see if face-to-face is an option. I get that there are a whole lot of formats for that. So some of you can already answer. If you don't know, simply write, we're not sure at this time. That's fine. It basically tells me what districts I need to look to for summer data, so that I don't pull all 174 if only 70 of you have summer school. And will there be any personnel changes? I don't want to lose any of you. I like you a lot. You're my favorite people. But occasionally you take another job, or you decide you want to go lay on a beach for a couple of years and retire. I'd like to dream with you, so please send me pictures if you do that. But this way I know if I need to make adjustments to the name of the coordinator, so when I'm sending things out, I get the right person. That's why that question's there. So that's just your data entry confirmation. And again, that's a quick survey in SharePoint. So when you go in, when you tell it ISEE confirmation, the survey will pop up and you take it right there online. It's not an actual form. Daytime waiver evaluation reports are due by June 30th. If you have schools with daytime waivers, then they will be completing this report. Regardless of whether they implemented their daytime waiver this year or not, regardless of whether they are going to implement it next year or not, I have to have a form if they have an approved program that tells me the status of the program. Okay, so if they didn't use it this year at all, you're still going to complete a form. You're going to put in the top information, because, you know, that you should know. Total number of students served. Well, if they didn't implement it, obviously that's going to be a 0, and it's going to be 0 for staff. Then you're going to go down here to the brief description of the program and explain why it wasn't implemented. And then you're going to go down here to the last part, in terms of, does your school want to implement the program again next year? Yes or no? And then what's going to change. So if you weren't able to implement it this year because you posted the ESS teacher position 4 times, but nobody ever applied who was qualified, so you couldn't get a teacher for ESS for daytime, that's then explain that, and explain the way that's going to change next year. We've already identified a retired teacher who will be coming back, and thus we want to implement. And then that's fine. We'll go ahead and approve the program for the next year. If you don't want to implement, you indicate no, indicate why, and I will close out your program, which means if that school wants to do a daytime waiver again in the future, maybe 2 years from now, they have to apply all over again. They have to do a new waiver request. So otherwise, you fill it out according to how the school year went for your daytime waiver. And I think I have a sample of that one. I do. The district is Pieper County. Don't you like that? I'm so creative. Not. My son told me it needed to be Pikachu County, but I wasn't real sure I knew how to spell that particular bogeyman. The coordinator is April Peeper. The school is April Elementary. And, you know, the school codes, if you don't know those offhand, it's not going to rock my world if you don't fill those in. I have that. Total number of students served. Number of students, number of staff, sorry. My son just walked back in again and distracted my brain. You're going to want to put any collaborative partners you're using in terms of funds and resources. And then the content area, you just click these off. Program delivery model. How are you delivering these daytime ESS services? What's the out of school time component? Now this is new. If you don't have a form with this on it, you're not using the newest form. But this allows me to see very quickly, especially if you didn't put it down in your narrative, what your out of school time component should be. Description of the program that you implemented, the number of students who improved, the number of students who did not, the number of students who declined, the number of students who were able to graduate from high school. Now, if you're in elementary, this doesn't apply because I hope they're not graduating from high school out of the 4th grade, but I mean, I guess it's possible. Number of students who were able to move to the next grade because of their ESS services. And then if you had students who didn't improve, we have these 11, then I need an explanation of what happened and what's going to happen differently to help reach those students. Does your school wish to implement the program again next year? And then any changes. This is how we reapprove the program here. Okay. Signatures can be electronic. You now see my son again walking around on my bed. It's perfectly okay, but please don't automatically sign the form for someone else without their permission. I think that's all I need to say about that one. All right, so those are the 3 reports that I'm looking for by June the 30th if your school has a daytime waiver program. If you need a new waiver request, those are also on the website. You just have to complete the form and submit it, and then I review it and approve it by then. Approve it, and you'll get a notification from the commissioner's office. Summer school ESS data has to be entered in the intervention tab by September 30th, and that's only if you have a program and you have something to enter. Few things on the daytime waiver notes. I just said if you request a program, you have to complete the waiver request. The turnaround time on approval really just depends on how complete the application is and how quickly I can get to it and approve it. Usually I can do a 48-hour turnaround on those. And usually you hear from the commissioner's office within usually it's been 4 to 5 business days, at least a week, business week would be sufficient, I think, for most of the time that they get those out. Now, if there's a whole lot that come in at once, it may take a little bit longer. And then just another reminder that that out of school time component is required. Submission procedures. You are submitting forms through SharePoint. This is the link, and again, you'll get this PowerPoint, so you'll have a copy of the link. If for some reason you cannot get in when you try, the first thing you might want to do is check the way you're entering your name. If you have an error message or cannot find your name, when you enter your name, make sure you enter last name, comma, space, first name. Sometimes SharePoint's strange. It makes you put the space in there. If that doesn't work, try it without the space, because sometimes that works. If you've never submitted before, I may need to make sure that you have rights. So just drop me an email and say, I'm unable to get in the SharePoint site. Can you please give me access or something to that effect? And I'll make sure that we take care of that for you. This particular site you do have to have access to because it's forms and information. You can only submit your stuff and you can only see your things. Program considerations, things to think about. If no ESS services at all are being provided by a school or a district, this could be a concern. So please, when you do your ISEE check, and we'll talk about that again here in just a minute, make sure that none of your schools have 0 records. All schools should have an adequate, reasonable number of records. What's adequate and reasonable? If your enrollment is 400 and you have 2 ESS records, I'm probably going to ask you about that. If your enrollment's 400 and you have 25, I might still ask you about it. If you have 50, I mean, it just depends. Especially if I look and your projection was 112 and you have 10, I'm definitely probably going to, probably, that sounded real interesting there, didn't it? I'm definitely going to just check to make sure that, you know, everything you wanted entered was entered. Lack of out-of-school time program when a daytime waiver program is in place. If you have an issue, please contact me early so that we can figure this one out. But again, hopefully we'll be able to take care of all those. Forms and reports not completed or uploaded timely. I've already had 2 districts contact me and say, we're completely locked out of our buildings. We're not allowed back in until the quarantine is lifted. What do I do? Because everything I need to fill out X, Y, and Z are in my office. Obviously, we'll figure it out. Just contact me often and I can pull last year's reports and send them to you. I can, there are things I can do to help you with that, depending on what it is that you need. So again, communicate often, communicate early, and we'll try to fill our way through those things, okay? Let's see. That's the 10% carryover. I didn't mention that. We've always been able to carry, or you've always been able to carry 10% of your ESS funds into the next school year. And yes, you can still do that. It's 10% of the district allotment. And yes, so yes, that's still permissible. All right. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the intervention tab. Yes. If you carry 10% forward, that's out. Yes, that's all the way into next year's monies. You just transfer it into next year's monies. Yeah. Thank you. All right, intervention tab records. I know this is everybody's favorite thing to do, but again, we appreciate the accurate data and we appreciate the data entry because we pull our ESS numbers and our results, and that's part of my report at the end of the school year is, this is how much funding we had in ESS, this is how many students we were able to serve, those kinds of things. So your data is important because it shows our overall program results. As well as it's important in your district because it shows your school and district program results. We're always looking for continuous improvement ideas, and the data is where we can get some of those ideas. For more information on inputting student records, you can always go to the data standards. And if you need more information on the intervention tab, we have a page on the website for that as well. Those are hyperlinked there. When you go into Infinite Campus to enter student records for ESS, this is what the tab looks like. I'm just trying to make it a little bit bigger for you. You are required to enter everything in green. And then there are fields that we do at the end of the year here that are in red. So these are all required. I guess the question becomes then what isn't? The comments boxes are optional. You don't have to have something in comments box. And anything after the comments boxes, with the exception of the funding, they're all optional as well. So most of what you see here, actually all of what you see here with the exception of the comments box, are required. Start date, tier status, and usually for ESS that's tier 2. That's pretty standard, although some of you have some really good tier 2 and tier 3 programs, and a few of you have tier 1 programs, which I understand completely, and that's not an issue at all. So tier is by your district and or school definition. Intervention type goes in there. Intervention content area. This is where it gets a little tricky. I think we've managed to, over the last couple of years, get rid of trying to throw everything in the other category, but you need a record for each content area. So if they're taking before school math ESS and after school ELA ESS, that's 2 different records. You don't do other, put in both and throw the records together. A, you can't progress monitor both of them because they're very different. Number two, you can't give me a result on both of them unless they do exactly the same, the student, on both interventions. There's no way to tease the data apart if you throw it all together in one lump sum. Saying that, however, and again, it's not a problem we have very often, we also don't do a brand new record every time they come to ESS. Initially, some folks had that issue. Little Johnny came to after school math ESS on Monday, after school math ESS on Wednesday, after school math ESS the following Tuesday, and they were 3 separate records. That's just one record. You just update the total hours. You don't have to do a new record every time. All right, so if there are specific questions about the intervention tab entry for new coordinators, there is a webinar on the SharePoint page that walks through each of these fields and really breaks this down into the individual parts. I'm not going to make everybody go through that again, but if you watch that and you still have questions, obviously, please contact me because that's what I'm here for. When it's time to run a report to check your data, and this is where a lot of you had issues and questions at the beginning of the year, and that's fine because it was new information for some of us. You go into Kentucky State Reporting, you look under the KDE report, and you'll see the PLP intervention data. That's the report that you want. And when you pull that up, it looks like this. Now, what I do, because this is the same field I get when I want to run a district, or I can't run multi-districts at a time, but I can run a district at a time. I put in my start and end date. I usually use, because we run with ESS, we run July 1 to June 30th. So I usually do July 1, you know, whatever the year is I want. If I want last year's, July 1, 2019 to today's date, or yesterday's date, whatever I want the end to be. I select ESS right here. I leave the grade at all. I leave the content area at all. And usually I pull it as CSV, but either one works. And then you generate the report. And when it pulls up, it looks like this. I hope you can see this. And you're thinking, what do I do with all this data now? Because there's a lot of it. That's a great question. So what I showed you at the beginning of the year was the first field I really worry about is the content area. So I highlight the field. I go over here to sort and filter, and it turns on this little arrow for me. And the first thing I do is I unselect all. And I look at other. Because if somebody has coded the content as other, then they were required to type in something in the other category. And what I'm finding is for, 8 of these records, 7 of these records, that hasn't happened. So I have no idea what this content area is. So the first thing I would do is make a note, because when I pull let's see, we do data pulls October 30th, January 30th, March 30th, and then June 30th. When I pull, one of the first things I do for the district that I pull is I make notes of what's missing or what doesn't look accurate. So I would make a note that there are 7 records, the content area is marked other, and there's no explanation of what the other is. Food and nutrition, okay, it might be a graduation requirement, so I get it. And then I have science and art. Now that's an error. It should be a science record and an art record. So I would make that note as well. So that's the first thing I check. And then I go back and you can clear the filter. And then I sort it A to Z. And I look for blanks at the very end. Now, I don't have any blanks in this record, or I would see data here and here, but nothing here. So they've all got a content area. So that's a good thing. I would make a note of that and I'd go on. And I do that for each of the columns that I need to check. I do that for the start date and the end date. I do that for the results to make sure there's nothing missing. I do that for the material 1 code because I know that if I see a vendor sorry, I'm all over the place this morning. I'm making you seasick. All right. Because I know if I see a vendor program code, I should see a vendor program set of numbers next to it. So if it's vendor program 2206, 2206, I know what that is. And in ISEE, when it pulls it, it translates that for me. But if there's a vendor code, I should definitely see a number over here. Now I have some where it's missing. That's something that I would note. Several missing there. But those are the things that I look for. I look for the results. I look anything on that ISEE confirmation checklist. That's what you're checking on here. And you can pull these one school at a time. And actually, if you, especially if you, I've taken the student names off of these and left fake. These are fake SSIDs, by the way, for me. But for your schools, they all have the same SSID. That would be a nightmare, wouldn't it? You can take off the SSIDs and maybe the student names, and you could even email it back to the school and say, these are the errors I found. They can pull it on their end, find out what the students are, who the students are, and fix it. You know, that kind of thing. So however you communicate that, you can even take a copy over. I mean, whatever works for your district. But this way, you know, you can let them know what needs to be fixed to whoever's doing the entry. All right, so that's the PLP report. That's how you can use it. Things to remember, I have done data pulls this year, October 30th and January 30th, and I did do some pulls on March 30th. If you haven't heard from me, it's because I haven't pulled you or there wasn't anything. Well, I would have emailed you even if I didn't find anything, just to let you know that your records looked good. So if you haven't gotten a communication from me, that would be why. Some of you have contacted me personally and asked me to do a poll for you, and I've done that as well. I will be honest, with everything going on in March, I usually pull 30 to 40 districts on a poll. For March, I pulled 15 because we were all, I knew that there was a whole lot going on with you all trying to get all of your instruction moved over to the NTI format. So I just did a small poll on March 30th, which means I've got more work to do in June, but that's okay. You know, that's what I'm here for. I'm repeating some things about regular year intervention data and summer school data. And then, you know, you're double checking for data quality issues as well as me. That way, hopefully we catch everything. And your principals can do their own checks or whoever enters for them. You don't have to do all of them for them. But you might want to anyway, just to make sure everything got corrected. Keep in mind that all records must have an end date by the end of the school year. So unless it's a summer school record. So all records should have an end date and an exit result. I think I mentioned all the other stuff there. I'm repetitive on purpose because sometimes the reminders are timely. Common errors is that the type 2 ESS, if it's ESS, it needs to be coded as ESS as the intervention type. And for some of you, we've really had to work through some of these scenarios because you're collaborating with Save the Children and they're doing part of your ESS in the after school program. That's fine. The type is still ESS. The funding is Save the Children, and that's okay. And we can work through any of those specific things together when they arise. Just give me a holler and I'll help you with that. The vendor program material we talked about. If it's a vendor program, you need a vendor code list. I'll show you where that is in a minute, but I think I've sent most of you hard copies of that. If you don't find a code that you need, then let me know because I can add it to the list and give you a code. And if you have a number 7 other, you have to type in what you're using. You can also contact me and I can add that to the list and give you a code. So if it's other, we just really need an explanation of that. All right. So real quick, I wanted to pull up the website. There we go. Hopefully this will show. If not, I can reshare real quickly. Can you all see the website? Let me know. Yes. Okay, good. So many of you are like, I can't find the website. Okay, I get it, because this, it's still not real user friendly. When you first come up to the web page, in this lovely little search box up here, if you type ESS, and my internet hopefully is working well and will connect like it's supposed to. Thank you. The very first link is our web page, and it takes you straight to the ESS web page, where there's some information there. The program planning guide is here. The regulations are here. The daytime waiver request and evaluation forms are here. So there's that evaluation form I went over if you already have a program. This is the daytime waiver evaluation. I'm sorry. This is the evaluation form due by June 30th. This is the request for a new program up here. This is the annotated form that goes with that, just to show you what it looks like filled out. This is the beginning of the year information PowerPoint. I will replace this today with this PowerPoint so that you have the latest available at all times. And the projection report, although that's the wrong name, I'll fix that too today, is right here. So you can click on that. But again, I gave you the forms in the meeting invite for this meeting. If you open the calendar invite, you should see the forms. They're attached. So all of that is right there for you. The intervention tab, when you're on the ESS page, is right above it. And that first thing there is the reference and vendor code list, so that you can get to that vendor code list if you need it. And then the ESS data standards are right here. Okay, so if you need that. There are also some sample forms here. For instance, there's a record of attendance if you don't have one. Most of you do in your ESS programs, but if you need one to record student attendance, there's one there for you. There's all kinds of things right here for the intervention tab itself. Okay, and again, that was just right above the ESS Extended School Service page on the left there. That's how you got to the intervention tab. All right. That's a lot of information. And I'm sorry, I feel like I was talking forever, but it's harder when you're doing this electronically, especially without the videos, because I can't see your faces. I can't see, I can't read tone from text. So I can take general questions, but if you have specific questions in terms of your district, let's wait and we'll talk about those individually. I don't know if there are any. We talked about the 10%. Right. If ESS is strictly funded by ESS, then you don't have to do anything in the funding field. That's correct.
April.
Yes.
This is Donna from Butler County. I just have a question that I was just kind of wanted to get a feel for what most people are doing while we're all here together on summer school. I know you mentioned most people are waiting. Is that the case? Is that what you've got feedback on?
Oh, no, not everybody's waiting. A lot of folks are going on with a virtual format until they have the option for face-to-face. Some are waiting until July 1 to see, what the circumstances look like then. I don't know that there's a true understanding right now of what everyone is doing, but if you have, if there's a district that wants to share, feel free.
I guess most people don't really know what they're doing yet, like I.
I think the conversations are just starting, and that's
okay.
Pretty par for the course. I've heard from several folks in the last week, just trying to feel through, what their options might be. We're working on guidance. It's just not ready today. But as soon as it is, you know me well enough to know I'll get it to you quickly. But they're working on guidance for summer programming. So be looking forward to that.
So the 29th, I guess it's tomorrow, there's a KDE webinar, and it's on, fill in the gaps and everything like that. I think it's tomorrow. So I assume, will you be in on that, on how to address achievement gaps at the start of next year? Will you address any of that? Are you a part of that tomorrow, or do you know anybody if that's going to be on the agenda with using ESS? I mean,
with ESS, I'll be honest, I haven't been invited, and I'm not, but I'll look and see. We've given, the way the process works in the department is that sometimes other departments ask us for guidance, and they have it and they present it. I'm just not sure who's presenting tomorrow, but I'll look into that for you. If not, then we'll follow back around with ESS and talk about that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Not a problem.
April, this is Cindy Davis with Corbin Independent.
Uh-huh.
I have a question concerning allotment of funds for after-school ESS versus daytime ESS.
Okay.
Is there any guidance on or guidelines on, can you have more money put aside in the daytime than the after-school? Or?
The regs are not, like, there's not a percentage breakdown in the regs. It says, quality programming and reasonable. Those are kind of the guardrails, quality and reasonable. The only time I generally question that is if, like, ESS gets no funding for out of school and all the money goes to daytime. And you don't give me a reason for that. Like, there's no explanation, like Save the Children's doing our out of school time. That's when I have to kind of sometimes ask questions, but there isn't a hard and fast rule other than, quality and reasonable programming. So there's no quantitative or qualitative requirement there other than, you're providing the best services for the students that you can. I know that's vague, and I'm sorry, but that's kind of what the answer is. We can talk about that too individually if you want, if you have a particular question. Like, School X is doing this, is that okay? We can talk about that.
No, I really just, that kind of clarifies it, because we have Promise Neighborhood and Save the Children.
Uh-huh.
And so they're doing a lot of before school and after school. And so that kind of gives me some clarification on the in-school portion.
Yeah, but budgets and legal and I discussed this, gosh, probably 5 years ago, when longer than that, probably 8 years ago, when the first cuts to ESS started happening, in terms of collaborating funding wise. And the rule of thumb they gave me was that if it's intended to be ESS, then it is ESS. Even if you're collaborating with another partner, that's fine. So, like, if you're using your ESS budget money for daytime and summer school, and then Save and Promise Neighborhoods are doing after school, that's fine. It just has to be coded as ESS services, and then you indicate where the funding is coming from. That's not a problem. Dawn, all ESS, so kindergarten and up. Dawn, I'm sorry, I just realized I should be reading the questions out loud. Dawn says, is data entered in intervention tab for all grade levels or just 3rd grade and up? And it's any ESS programming. So ESS is kindergarten through 12th grade. Oh, I see. I'd like to know the answer to the question, but now I've got to find the question. Hang on. All right, hang on. I got to scroll up. Okay. How do you end date? You used your last day of school or your last day of ESS programming, whatever those were. Same thing as other years. Oh, new message. Should we use, okay, so we just repeated the question. Yeah. So whatever your last day of ESS programming is, or whatever your last day of school is, if you do it all the way up until then. And some of you roll right into from your regular year right into summer school. So your summer school records, you don't have to end date until summer school ends. But so the last day of school in session, or the last calendar day? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was really struggling. Thank you, Dawn. I apologize. I don't know. It depends on what you did. I've talked about this with a couple of districts, and Carol Ann, this might be a point where I need you to weigh in. I'm going to attempt an answer, but then help me if you need to. I had the question, what if our ESS programming changed formats? We went from face-to-face after school to an online format. Do we have to do new records? And what I said was, as long as you're targeting the same skills with the students, you're still working on the same content, the same skills, there's no need for a new record, but you could make a note in a comment that, you know, the mode of instructional delivery change due to NTI, that's fine. But honestly, unless it changed dramatically, you don't have to start a new record. You don't have to do anything. You just keep count of the, you know, attendance for the student, how many hours they attended, and finish out your record. It depends on what your school was able to do. Do you end date or when NTI started and start a new record? Possibly. Do you continue? That's okay too, if it didn't change dramatically. As far as the last day, it should be the last day that ESS was offered. Whenever your ESS program ends for the year. Rarely is that the last day of school, but some of you kind of use that date anyway because you have teachers working with students up until that last day of school. So if ESS ends on May 1st, then you can use May 1st. If you are ending on May 10th, you can use May 10th. If your last day of school is May 14th, you can use May 14th. That's fine. It's just whenever your ESS program ends. Does that look different because of NTI? It depends. And I know that sounds like a dumb answer, but it's true. It just depends on what you were able to do. But your end date is the date that ESS services ended effectively. If you continued it through NTI, then you end date whenever it ends in the future here. I feel like I'm stumbling all around that one, so I hope that made sense. You're welcome, Christian. I hate when I answer it depends, but really to be flexible to your needs, that is the answer because it depends on what your programming looked like. Did I get all those big questions? You can unmute or you can type, either way. Yes, so how do we do exit growth? It may matter how your progress monitoring is going up until now. You may have to rely heavily on your ESS teachers' progress monitoring data in terms, since you don't have an actual benchmark assessment. Whatever that progress monitoring trend is, it is perfectly okay to mark continuing intervention, especially if we don't have clear exit markers that tell us the student has made, you know, really good strides and is ready to exit. Continuing intervention is not negative in any way. It just means the student's going to continue to need help when school starts. So if you have a clear indicator, student was doing great, was moving in the right direction by leaps and bounds, successfully exited may be the way to go. Otherwise, continuing intervention, again, is perfectly fine. Don, the end date is the date your ESS services finished for the year, whatever that date was. So, yep, looks like continuing intervention will be your result. All right. Did that help? Some of you have been around for a long time, and I hope I'm coming through clearly and making sense. I just know there's going to be a lot of what ifs, and my school was able to do X, and I want to make sure that I can take my time with you and we can think through those rather than trying to do those whole groups. So, thank you, Donna. I know it's going to be a strange year. I'm here for you. I absolutely am. We will get through this. I don't want this to cause a lot of stress or, you know, cause anybody health issues. We have enough pressure. I just want us to, you know, to get what we need done as soon as we possibly can, and then breathe. Maybe if you can't go lay on the beach, you can go lay in your backyard and pretend. Thank you guys so much. You all are wonderful. I tell you this all the time. You wear so many hats, and you drive these instructional improvements in your districts, and I just can't thank you enough. You know I'm here for you. Virtual beach just isn't the same. I know, Donna. I know. I have been in the house with all 3 of my children, both of my dogs, and my husband now for 5 weeks. I'm going to need more virtual beach time or something. You guys have a great day. I'm going to stay on just in case there's somebody had something. Thank you, Michelle. My email is there. My phone number rings to my phone right here in my house. You can hear my dogs barking with me. Y'all have a great day. Stay safe. Yes, Pat. Summer school is out of school time. Yes. Before, after school, intersession, summer school. Yes. Yes, I will post the PowerPoint, Casey. I will email it to you and I will post it on the webpage. Welcome. All right, I'm going to stop recording. Honestly, I just remembered I started.